Hey there, Bob from Oregon's Constant Gardener. Welcome to the OCGFAM. Christopher's here. Christopher,
Jack.
actually, Jack is
Jack
here.
likes the one guy who doesn't like dogs that much.
I like dogs.
Yeah, but out of all of us, I think you would probably take third in dog loving. But look
No.
at him, he loves you.
I'm a dog person now with Willie. I take care of Willie.
You hate Juby.
Well, Juby hates everyone. I
No,
don't
he
mind.
doesn't. He loves you with barks and screams.
And
Juby's my
attempted
friend.
bites.
Never
I can't wait
though.
to see Juby at OCG.
For those that are unaware, Christopher is the Oregon's Constant Gardener website dude. I mean, not exactly the big kahuna, but
Wow.
the big kahuna of the web store.
He's the biggest kahuna here.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
It's been a couple hard years. Age and time and boredom has gone.
Look at some of our older videos. That was a much bigger kahuna a couple years
We're
ago.
absorbing him. If you watch the videos of Bob and I over the years, it's like, holy shit, Bob, you gotta be diabetic with your fucking weight changes.
Yeah. I went all the way down. I was a medium, and now I'm closing in on an extra large.
But then you went back to like a medium L, and then you're fit, and then your wife must have gotten a better cook or something.
Something happened. I don't know.
But, we really just wanted a quick, Christopher's here for a quick moment. He's got to bail out at a certain point during this. I wanted you guys to meet Christopher real time, see that he can answer the same questions we do. You guys ask him those questions. When you hit support@ocgfam.com, he's getting those, and he's the one that's answering back. He does CC us. Normally when he gives me those CCs, I see what he's answered. I know that it's on point, so I don't even respond because it's just redundant at that point. So more importantly, Christopher, OCG fam, they're watching you. You guys holler out any questions for Christopher as well. We're happy to answer them, and he's always there on the website. But I wanted him to be a part of one or two of these Q&As, so you guys understood that your packages come the way they do because this guy oversees it. They get zero breakage because this guy makes sure it's all packed. He's taking everything OCG fam and is taken to another level to where most companies would poop on him because of the cost piece of what he does. Until you look at the bottom line of how many claims we have won. I've never won a claim here at Oregon's Only UPSing a package out the door. He has won every single claim because of how he packages, how he documents. Every single thing that goes out our door, this guy has his eyes on, and we've yet to lose $1 from UPS punting our products off of their trucks into your doorstep. So kudos, great job. You make OCG fam. You make our jobs look great because the back end of this thing is all this guy and his team. They make sure that we look good because if we did this shit, we'd look great here, and then you'd never get your orders, we'd be laundering your money, and we'd be buying Maseratis. And that's why we let Christopher do all the handling of your orders.
Well, and it's not just the money where, when something gets shipped out and gets messed up by UPS. You see, I get these Amazon packages and stuff, and the cardboard gets thinner and thinner and thinner every time. If that thing breaks and your stuff gets messed up or leaks out of there, it's a while. I mean, because he'll ship it right back out to you. He'll ship you another one, and then he'll sort it out with UPS. But you're waiting for your stuff, and so packaging is not just a money-saving thing. Packaging it right is a way to get you exactly what you need every time and get it on time.
And without the hiccup of more time, because all we have to do is replace it by shipping you another 7-day shipment. So. Thank you, Christopher. You guys also drop him a line. Next time you're like, hey, Bob, thanks for the package. Just remember, Bob is Christopher.
Yeah. I don't do anything except this.
Bob does this, and Bob knows how to talk to me.
Yeah.
Which is a fucking skill all in its own without being murdered. And believe me, we've come to freaking almost fisticuffs, but then we hugged at the end, so we're good.
Yep.
All right, on to some Q&As.
All right.
Today.
Jevin Alvarez. Javon, I think it's Jevin. Anyway, he says, when using Demeters at 45 milliliters a gallon, will that cause mag deficiency?
From adding too much Demeters?
Yes.
No, but, no. But you're probably making a lot of other things available, so what you're probably seeing is more of a overdose and a toxicity than you'd ever see in a mag deficiency. It's it's not promoting so much calcium that it's preventing the uptake of magnesium. It literally is going in and chelating magnesium from the soil and creating that bond and reaction so the plant can absorb the magnesium that's in cocoa and peat moss. So it would just be more of anything. I'd be more concerned about making too much nitrogen available with that much calcium, that type of calcium that's in Demeters could offer too much nitrogen at that time at 45 mils. That's 3 tablespoons.
Yeah, that was my instant reaction. You probably saw it in my eyes of, no deficiency, if anything, potential burn issue or problem. I mean,
or overfed
really,
green, heavy leaves, maybe a tip curl down.
Demeters, to me, in my garden is like a slow and steady kind of thing. You keep it low, 5, 10, maybe up to 15 mils if you really felt
problems,
you needed that. But
very rare.
So, a magnesium deficiency is somewhat rare.
Well, you see it often. It's rare.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be rare, but why we see it often is when your pH starts to drift one way or the other heavy. That magnesium's kind of a pretty specific spot
narrow
it needs to be.
band in the pH.
Yeah, so if you're 5.3, which you'd be miserable on every level of feeding, but the low pH, but more importantly, we see like when you're in the 7 to 7.4 range, that magnesium's not available at all. You got a ton of calcium because your calcium's like, 6, don't care, I can be eaten anywhere. But that magnesium isn't bonding at 6, 7 and above. So it really likes to be that 6.3 to 6.5 for the magnesium to be available. When I see mag deficiencies in plants, generally the slurry is going to show a pH of like 7.1. And if that's the case, we just got to bring the pH in the soil down. Mag will immediately become available because it's there. But if the pH starts climbing out of the range, it just ties up.
So if I'm seeing some drift in these sorts of things, and I'm trying to sort that out in the interim, does Mag-Amp or some Epsom salts or something like that help, or is it still going to be unavailable even if I pour it directly on the plant?
No, it would help because it's immediate. But the residual problem that you could be adding to is you're building a reserve because your plant can absorb what it can right away. Like I would foliar feed Mag-Amp to get the magnesium fixed. Not do soil drenches because if they're not taking up magnesium now, they might take a little bit up when you put Mag-Amp in or Epsom salt in. The downfall is a lot of it's still storing because of the pH issue. All of a sudden you bring your pH down and bam, there you go. There's a whole bunch of mag all at once.
What's going to happen then?
The difference between toxicity and deficiency become very similar. So you start to see similar signs, just different colors and different variations of leaf damage and foliage, like the intravenous discoloration will, instead of just being light yellow to green, it'll actually have burnout marks, like the cells will start to actually degrade.
Yeah, they're kind of falling apart.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the hardest things when customers come into Constant Gardener and they have pictures or leaves of plant material showing this, is the plants generally show a lot of these things the same way. And that's where those slurry tests are vital to really determine what's kind of going on.
And a correct slurry test, too. I mean, we're battling an issue right now with a customer who we asked for some soil tests, some slurries he was having. He's saying our soil is way too high in EC for his farm, to find out that he's pH in his water down from 8 to 7 with phosphoric acid, and then letting the soil sample with the 1-to-1 sit for 20 hours. And it's like, well, everything's soluble now because you've taken the acid, you've hydrolyzed everything in the soil plus whatever nutrition you've been adding, and then letting it sit for 20 hours in a saturation, which if your soil sat that saturated for 20 hours, your plants are drowned. So the downfall is his numbers are coming back so elevated, but it's not because it's a snapshot of water and it's a swamp he's created, and all those numbers have become solubilized because acids at that level, phosphoric acid is very corrosive. And if it's touching bone and kelp and feather, it will eat that all into a liquid and make it 100% available in that form. So when you go to test it, you're going to have skyrocketing ppms.
In the slurry, but not in the soil.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. The slurry will show elevated numbers when they're not there.
Would you say that more often than not, when I see a deficiency, it's not truly a deficiency, it's I'm locked out, or I got pH issues, I've got
which is a deficiency.
Other issues.
I mean, you're seeing the deficiency because something's occurring.
Right, but it's not because there's not enough of that thing in the soil.
Very rare. I mean, I'm testing a plant. That plant out there looks pretty good. You know what that's gotten? Soil. And all I've done is 5-gallon bucket of water every day. And just to see.
Overloving, you see that?
Yeah, so, I mean, it truly is. It's better. There, it's present. What's really interesting, I wish we could show, without being canceled out in the world, there's one branch with a magnesium deficiency. And it's the one branch when I was ripping this thing out of this tiny pot to put in a bigger pot, I'm pretty sure I broke. And you can literally see the correlation of the one branch of root in the one top. That's literally like corn. It's the same thing. Every silk, when you see your corn forming all those silk, like on a brand new corn stalk, and you go out and there's no corn, just 1,000 little silk strings coming out of a pod, each silk needs to be touched by a piece of pollen to create a kernel. So if you like go, well, look, there's not a single, like if you go, when you first see the silk and cut half of them off and then pollinate it, you'll have half a corn cob. It'll form wherever those go in and touch the cob is where a kernel will form.
Lord.
So you, like right now, they could get bad seed year. I have 6 corn grew, bad seed, got them from OCG.
I heard you have to have a certain amount of rows too for the pollination.
Well,
really
10 by 10 is ideal for minimal pollination, and I know how to do all this. So I'm like, 6 came up in a 10 by 15 bed. Miserable. I mean, it's embarrassing to even show people. I'm like, look, I'm a grower. So I'm sitting there looking at my mediocre OCG
gardening
seed corn.
will use time and time again.
So all the tops came out, and as they start to get ready to pollinate, so I just take them and I bend this one over to here, and I'm pollinating them all. I shit you not. This is my wife and I ate our first ear of corn off of this crop.
We had to split it?
Yeah, we did. Embarrassingly enough, we did have to split it, but the thing was that you have to touch every one.
That's what you get.
Wow.
And you get a kernel for each one of those. And so, like, we're talking, ooh, that's my spider. I was seeing if I had a little picture of my depressing corn plant. But it's really interesting because that whole thing just shows you that same with these plants, everything is, if you're only watering on one side and everything on this side's super healthy, but this side is kind of weak, it's probably because you've got a dry pocket.
Wow.
This side of your soil isn't absorbing any nutrition or hydration. So therefore, this side of the plant that correlates directly across with its in its own vascular system, whatever it is they call it, that's literally going to show the effect of this dry pocket. Like, why is this one whole branch just dying? Well, you probably got a giant dry pocket in the soil.
So if you see deficiencies, you would probably look at your slurries and that sort of thing to see first of all. And then if you were gonna, would you like do some foliar feeding while you're trying to fix that pH or something?
Well, first slurry test, 9 out of 10 times is going to tell me, well, pH is off. This is why these elements aren't being available, and that looks exactly what's wrong. Now, we've been to farms where we can't figure it out. Everything's perfect, 6.5, 400 parts per million. Plants are drooping, they're wilting, all these things. We can't find visible pests. Maybe there's root aphids. Then we go into a whole nother level of discovery. While we're trying to discover if there's a root aphid or a hemp russet mite or something we can't visually see, we'll start doing the Brix testing on each element. Is it nitrogen? Brix it. No, they don't need more nitrogen. Is it phosphorus? Is it potassium? Is it magnesium? Cobalt? And we'll go all the way down to find what is the element this thing's missing while we're trying to discover, is there a pest in the soil? Because there's still, now we just open more doors and more variables to scratch our head and go, what's going on?
Is there kind of an all-purpose foliar you might for general health to try, or you got to figure out what you're
Well, if you're trying to figure out the deficiency, there is no all-purpose. You
Yeah.
need elemental
Yeah.
products to find out. So, I mean, the nice thing is that being, Frank, so deep in chemistry, we have elemental nitrogen, phosphorus. I mean, we have them all that we can use for this. We wouldn't use them as nutrition, but we can definitely use
Figure
them
out
as a
what's going on.
branch to branch. Because what we'll do is take one plant, mark this branch nitrogen, isolate it, spray it, wait for 5 minutes after drying, test the Brix. If it went up or down, it tells us, does it want it or not want it? Does it want it or not? And we do 10 different products on one plant.
That was some of the testing you were doing with pig, right?
We did that with pig. We used to do that with ghetto. We used to do, I mean, there was a few farms that had different issues, and
Remember when you were trying to solve
What would
any problems hearing about that?
yeah.
But what a
alkalinity.
home grow? Oh, sorry.
Oh no, but yeah, with the alkalinity thing, that was a whole nother beast because we couldn't find
I remember
anything
you doing the
wrong.
Brix testing though, and discussing that process.
Yeah.
So I found that interesting.
What would a home grower do? They think they're seeing deficiencies. They do their things. Would you foliar? What would you? But would you hit it with everything?
At first I'd get some information on my slurry. I'd reach out to my mentors, tell them what that is.
Yeah.
If they're scratching their head, then I'd start with a foliar feed with a general like Gaia or hit them with that, see how they respond. If they respond favorably, then going into like, okay, let me just put Poseidon on to see if it's potassium. Let me just put Pegasus, see if it's nitrogen. Let me see if it's, and then start kind of isolating it that way. But generally, it's so rare that it's boron. I mean, I get these guys, I looked it up, and it's a boron deficiency. It's like, so your plant needs like 0.0005 parts per million in a full cycle for boron. Probably not boron. Oh, use worm castings. You got it all.
Does that come from like farming where you have kind of dead soil and you've got science out there and you've got millions of dollars on the line and you can figure out what's going on, as opposed to this where you have a good soil and everything you need is probably in that soil? Maybe not in the amounts you need, but
most likely. If you bought a potting soil, the manufacturers have put together enough wherewithal to put a decent blend out there that's going to...
all those microbes.
Yeah, I mean, if you use worm castings anywhere, most of the traces are in that, so you're never going to need
I think where some of that comes from is some of the older books that cater to this industry. They used to have a deficiency chapter, and they would, what was funny is they would show a leaf, and it would say
drawing of a leaf.
Drawing of a leaf, and they would have different brown spots on the leaves.
I gotcha.
Again, the plants, when they're not healthy, they're usually paling out and then have spots on them in different ways. And like almost every deficiency, like I said, it's funny, you could pull the book. The biggest difference I would see in them would be like an intravenous greening versus just a complete paling of the green. Those are kind of like the big differences I would see. But otherwise, they almost, every deficiency starts to look the same, you know? And so, yeah, just knowing what you're feeding, doing your slurry tests, is really going to help you direct.
Do you see that from time to time when you're growing? I mean, you see deficiencies, you have to fix things?
You have
to fix something every year?
Oh, I would say every cycle, every grow, you know, and it's great when everything goes great, but I would say that's fewer than...
if you're a great grower and everyone's flawless, then you're lying and you catch giant salmon in a fucking pond. So it's not true.
5 pounds of lead every cycle, you know.
Yeah, no, it's you have to keep, and genetics.
Definitely, you know, plant to plant, in a grow, container to container. That's why I've always, you know, as a grower, I've always preferred smaller plants in a larger count that didn't necessarily line up with the way they wrote things in the world. But it's kind of like if you only have 4 plants, all your eggs are in those 4 baskets. And
you're not experimenting a lot
big
better.
Baskets, and where, you know, you got 20 plants in a little space, you know, one of them's not doing great, it's, you know, you try to correct it, but it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, you got 19 backups.
Yeah. So.
Yep. No, and that's one guy and I have been discussing back and forth. He goes, "What do you do when you get spider mites?" I'm like, I call it.
You're done.
I call my friend and say, "Hey, you got any of that extra laying around? Because I just killed off this crop because I don't want to fight this battle right now in my life." So it really comes down to, don't ask me about pest control because I'm a fertilizer manufacturer and I don't hang my name on any pest controls ever again. I've yet to not be completely roasted by putting my name on somebody else's pest control product.
Every single
Everyone!
time.
I can't think of one that hasn't completely gaped me.
Oh, just boned hard the first time around.
I'm starting to feel like I should get at least Pornhub payments. Anyway.
We have one, it's called Fuck It. It's just a jar, but it's got a pair of scissors in there.
It's called fire. Go in your backyard, get on a fire pit, burn that shit. Yeah. All right, next.
Okay. The boutique grower. Now, this is a long thing, but it comes down to the unofficial Nectar Bible.
All right, next.
Well, no, I mean, no, a lot of people are like, you should do, and I've said myself, we should do a show of the unofficial Nectar Bible. We should do just go through it. But
what we need,
it's a mess.
Well, what we need, I'd be happy to do this if we had 3 volunteers on that side of the camera rewriting this thing as we do this. Because what we'll do is we'll go through it and say, okay, this has changed. This is not good info anymore.
Yeah.
Huh?
I'll be one of the volunteers to rewrite it.
All right,
okay, we're a third of the way. Because it's a quilt. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, but what it is, it's grower Wikipedia Bible.
Yeah,
this isn't the Nectar or anything. That's why it's the unofficial. This is Bill Burns listening to a whole bunch of bickering online, documenting all the bickering, and then putting it in a very wonderful index chapter-to-chapter Bible thing that is amazing, but it is outdated. It needs, I mean, it's generally good info. But there's pieces in there that with all the new alkalinity, all the new Circes, microbial products, you know, I'd like to change that recycling program. I'm getting nothing but fucking complaints about that now with the recycling the soil videos.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's just, they're too hot. They're not allowed to now use Nectar products because this stuff's coming in too hot. So it's like, we just need to redo it. But I need to have, I don't have the wherewithal to do the retyping of the whole thing. I've started making a ton of notes. So, I mean, I've got a chapter of stuff that's just revisiting and revising what's been written so we can kind of start changing it, but I just don't have the time.
I would say that if you're down to do it, is the structure of it, is looking over the structure of how it's laid out, and is that viable? Does it have a good scaffolding? Is there a good framework that we can work with? Because if there is that, we can just go through one episode.
Yeah.
I use it a lot with customers when they're emailing in, and I'm hesitant to give it to people right off the bat because it is a lot of information that can overwhelm somebody who's just trying to scratch the surface, and that's one approach I always take when talking.
We need the Bibles for children, and we need you're taking the deep dive.
Exactly. Because you got people who want to
throw
take that
pictures
deep dive,
in it,
and then you got people who just want to scratch that surface. And I think knowing your customer and talking to them, figure out what their goal is in their garden, because you do have people who want to be a mad scientist. They want to spend close to 24 hours a day in their garden, and you have other people that they just love one shot and they just want water on top of it. So
now we'll come up with something, but it's just a matter of it's time. That took Bill over a year to do, and he did that on his own accord because he just wanted clarity in what he was being told.
And I'm always down to volunteer, but I am also busy in the web department, so but I will definitely
recruit some of those nectar people in the Facebook group and see if any of them are interested in doing it. That dog just knocked us off center.
You knocked us off.
Okay, Matt Howard. I'm gonna go to the end with this one because it was just like he's just kind of talking there about stop buying a lot of things. So Matt Howard, I got a question about the feeding chart. I see it says to use Medusa's magic through flower. Is that right? I just thought you'd want to stay away from nitrogen in flower, especially late flower. If you could make a video about why you say to use it through bloom in a viewer's questions video, would you really appreciate it? Love the show and everything you guys do. So, a lot of things, like a lot of growth systems, it's you use this one in veg and this one in bloom, whereas we got two and use maybe a little more of this one, a little less of this one, then kind of switch them over.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, because we're still not big believers in the NPK system. I mean, it's nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. That's all. That's my recipe. That's my menu.
Yeah.
What a lot of people can think that when we go into flowering, the flower is just flour, and it only needs phosphorus to be a flower, and it's still all cellulose. It's still cell tissue. It's still leaf mass. It's still organic matter. It's still plant matter. It still needs those trace amounts of nitrogen to form those cells and stay at certain health for photosynthesis to occur. So we keep nitrogen in, and if you see, our nitrogen is what, 2?
Yeah.
So our Medusa's 2 is all nitrogen measured by proteins, not by nitrates. So you're not getting high energy nitrogen nitrate pounding this plant, elongating it, stretching it, and keeping it super green.
Sure.
It's just the proteins that are in here that are keeping the foliage to be developed. Flower's majority of, it's foliage just smashed together with calyxes. And so if you take the nitrogen piece out, then you end up more with like a cookies looking flower where it's just calyxes and no mass and girth. And so that's why we keep it in. We don't believe that the plant's just like, well, third week in flowering, don't want nitrogen. All right, shut down the nitrogen uptake. No, they still need it. It's part of the big picture. The beauty is that we're still feeding the soil. We're entering it into the soil. If the plant doesn't really want to access that because they don't want that, they're not going to bring that up because it's just a protein that the microbes can break down, and then the microbes breaking down those proteins just convert them into another form of amino acid or another form of an element, and the plant can still reabsorb that as a different element. So the only time I really would like to take Medusa and maybe Demeter's, which helps the uptake of nitrogen, and maybe Athena's, which is a nitrogen protein for amino acids, is if I'm in week 4 or 5, my plants are so green and they just won't even begin to lighten up, and I just want to cut nitrogen out completely. Those 3 I just remove from the program, and I up my Tritons, up my Circes, up my Herc, and they're still getting the full recipe, they're just not getting into the proteins of nitrogen.
So the Gaia and Medusa are largely similar?
Just balanced differently in volumes and, a few different ingredients in both. But
would you say that NPK is kind of like eating only steak, potatoes, and broccoli your whole life and not having a richer diet of different things? It's kind of...
Well, no, exactly that. It's literally a steak, it's literally broccoli, and it's literally, an apple. That's it. So those are your 3 things you can eat.
Yeah.
Morning, noon, and night.
That's one of the beauties of nectar is it gives you, we always preach that you don't have to use all these products, but all of these products are tools for you as a gardener in your tool belt to use. And there are strains that people have noticed, like the cookie strains that we've advocated, reducing those products like Athena's, potentially Medusa, if you're seeing that green hold on longer into the later stages of growth. Yep. So, again, a lot of people are sometimes overwhelmed with the amount of products, but again, you can kind of tailor. And what's so unique about the product line is that you can tailor the recipe that you build for the strains you're working with as you continue to work with them over time.
For those that are paying attention, that's what they love. Like other people that are like, it's too much for a commercial grow because I got to use all 15 parts. You must have the one genetic that really thrives on all 15 parts, because most guys won't. I mean, Pig is down to like 12 products of ours that are just his Fen2s, and then his one personal grow, he has a couple more of the other things in there. But it boils down to your genetics, your plants, your outcome, your taste buds, and your market. And if all of those things align, find the right products for your plants. I like Medusa and Gaia because they're the GH 1, 2, 3 in the sense of 3 of this, 2 of this, 1 of this round, 1 of this, 2 of this, 3 of this round, 1, 3, 2. I mean, they just... It's all the same measurement, they just change the variant.
So, someone from sub-Saharan Africa is probably not great at metabolizing milk, but someone from Norway, probably a little better at it. But they could both probably live on it if they absolutely have to. One of them would just be real backed up.
Acclimate.
Yeah.
Eventually they'll acclimate.
Yeah. Okay, then it's kind of that's kind of the same kind of scenario.
Yeah. No, kick the NPK mentality to the curb, because you got to realize NPK nutrition came from the biggest people in the industry, Monsanto and Scott's Miracle-Gro. So therefore, that's science and that's gospel. Well, we can look at our plants, we can look at our flowers, and we can smoke to smoke to smoke. I don't want science, and I don't want what's normal anymore, because that tastes like hay and field straw set on fire with gas. I want gas. I want the diesel that comes out of some of these genetics. I want that blueberry. I don't get that by just doing NPK nutrition.
Well, I think a lot of it also, too, is it's a lot easier to scrape salt out of Utah than bird poo out of the Philippines. And so they made a way to make this stuff work.
Well, and more importantly, what do we do with all the freaking byproducts of crude oil?
Yeah.
Well, we burn it in diesels, we do this and that. Hey, shit, we'll make fertilizer with it.
Make fertilizer out of this.
So it's just, most fertilizers are this step below or above plastics.
Yeah.
So it's like, what are you going to do with that now that you're not using it? Yeah. We'll make plastic trays.
Well, if you're trying to feed wheat to 7 billion people, it's a little different than if you're trying to make some fine crop for yourself.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, there's a reason for scientific, field
This
farming.
happened for reasons.
Yeah, not everybody can eat organics.
and they're in your wallet. That's why most of them.
Yeah, well, and I guarantee you McDonald's isn't using a local farm. These tomatoes from around here? Sure.
I read a thing that they were going to do shrimp cocktails, but there wasn't enough shrimp.
Oh, yeah, no.
In the whole world, there was not enough shrimp for them to do shrimp cocktails.
I question their beef.
Suspect.
Yeah,
everything is suspect.
Okay. The love of growing. You guys talk about slurry tests a lot.
You already have in the show. Twice.
3 times.
Let's say you are monitoring your ppm, but one pot is a 5-gallon and one is a 10-gallon pot. Should the ppms read the same? Both plants have full root mass in the different pots. Nice show.
I mean, I would look at them as individuals and say, this plant is in its 3rd week of veg, this plant is in its 9th week of veg, bigger container. So you kind of want to know what they're both doing in their respective states of time in the grow, and then measure those numbers and then react to those results. So if you're in a 1 gallon and the parts per million are 900 and the pH is 6.4, then you probably just want to flush. And then you go test this 10 gallon and the parts per million are 450 and the pH is 6.5, then feed your normal feed, because this one has a lot more buffering capacity in the soil than this little one that doesn't have the buffering capacity. So you're kind of hydroponically feeding this one versus having a lot more buffering over in this one. So you can't treat them the same. I mean, you can, if everything looks great and you literally have 1s, 3s, and 5s and they're all in the same stage of grow, feel free to feed them all, but test them all separately and treat them differently when the results come back not the same, because they're not going to come back the same.
So if you're outside, you're in a 10 trillion gallon pot, it's still, you can do a slurry test. There's some point where, I mean, if you were in a 1,000 gallon pot with a little plant, and you're not digging out there, you're digging over here.
Well,
and so it should be.
The rule of thumb with all plants, and this is the beautiful thing about a creator, is here's this canopy, here's the rain, the tip of the root is always at the tip of the canopy. So if you're outdoors in a 1,000,000 gallon pot, you're not. You're literally just go to the edge of the canopy, go straight down, come back 3 or 4 inches. That's your sample, because that's where the outer ring of hydration's happening, and plants just naturally put out that level of root.
So when you're doing these slurries, you're more looking for a trend than an absolute number. But do you think those two would have a different number? If you plant one plant at 5 and one plant at 10, do you think you would see a different number between those two growing the same?
I would say even 2 plants that say they're both in 10s, both started at the same time, there's potential for those numbers to be vastly different.
Yeah, this one's closer to the CO2 machine. That one's closer to the LED light. That one's closer to a fan.
How quickly one starts to take over its container, like the root, because you can't see what's going on in the soil. You're not digging up all the roots and seeing. And a lot of times those plants that I see, like if I have 20 plants in a grow and one of them's struggling, and you do a slurry and you're seeing elevated numbers or lower numbers, there's usually, I feel like that plant was weaker coming out of the clone stage and was just weaker overall, and it's showing that a little bit later on. So you would, if everything's perfect, you hope you measure. All you would have to measure is one plant in your tent, let's say, and that you can rely on that number for every plant in there. Can't. I mean, it's always going to be a lot of work to go test every single plant in there, but if you want to be absolutely sure, or at least change them up, that's a great way. Random samples.
Don't always take
like
plant 1, take 1, 6, 3, 5, 4, 10.
But with that too, be in the same neighborhood. But if you visibly have a bunch of plants and one of them's having a problem, you can almost guarantee you're going to see different numbers on that.
And if you started them all at the exact same time, and one's in a 1, one's in a 5, and one's in a 10, the 10 is not utilizing all the minerals and elements out of that 10 gallons worth of soil. The 1 is going to be depleted in 4 weeks. So this is going to be 100 parts per million, and that's still going to be 420 out of the bag because they haven't accessed and consumed it all yet. Even with, I have root-bound plants on both. Well, but there's these core. I mean, once they hit the outer edge, they still can come in and consume. A truly root-bound plant would yield 0 soil at the end. I mean, you can really get into a bind that way, but yeah, I would always recommend if you have multiple size containers or multiple ages of plants, separately slurry test them.
More work, but it's worth it.
Would you grow in a bigger pot, all else being equal?
Like I said, big bottoms, big tops.
But I got you. So, well, just I mean, as far as like the health of the plant and all that, I mean, do you feel like that having some more soil, it gives you a kind of a buffer to issues?
This year, I'm loving my outdoor grow. I mean, those plants are doing phenomenal, and I'm loving having them actually in the ground. In my indoor garden, I really do prefer a burn and turn cycle. If I'm trying to have a cycle go in there right after, timing becomes an issue with bigger containers. So I find that nice medium of like 3 to 5s in the turn and burn scenario where I'm trying to, like, as soon as that run's done, I want plants in there basically the day after cut down. Smaller containers favor that versus big containers.
You really got to be planning with, like, Pig does 15s.
Or have a bigger
so it literally is like 3 to 7 to 15, and then they're 10 weeks of both.
For this, obviously.
So you don't have a buffer of soil, but you have a buffer of more plants. That more things can go wrong, and you still got some plants.
I can have 1 or 2 give me an issue, and I don't have to sweat bullets versus if I have this one,
And he's not vegging them for 10, 12 weeks in a 5, because if you did that, there's no way they're coming out of that surviving without. You're feeding them hourly at the end of the cycle because they're so root bound.
So again, it's just different approaches on getting to the end result, but there's different ways of getting there.
Sure. Good answer. Just business. Do you guys believe in super soil, the cocoa soil mix? And if so, is there a different regimen for that? So there's cocoa super soil.
Is it a specific mix that he's using?
I don't. Well, he says. Well, I guess.
I mean, super soil, like a
I thought we had a longer
nutrient
question of this. Was there?
I think there's another question towards the bottom of super soil.
It seemed like we had something else about that was, as far as like with, because there's.
Oh, how would you feed it? different is the other question.
Yeah, because it's gonna. Well, I mean, can you have a super soil in cocoa? I mean, because it seems like it's gonna.
Because I don't know one super soil out there that's got soluble forms of calcium that are readily available at the time of watering. Unless you've got super acid water and super alkaline soil, there's no way you're getting everything that you can get and control with a bottle. Now, the guys that do like doing super soils, I like my vegetable gardens as super soil, but I still top it off once a week or once every other week with my additives to push for yield, volume, health.
Most of those guys, they're doing like super soils and building them, they're letting them cook for a little while. They know their stuff, and they are still able to push with liquids if they want to. So yeah, I mean, I would say we support them at Constant Gardener in the sense of if you do them right, you can still push hard with liquids. You don't have to use liquids. There's different ways you could approach them, but it definitely, I think, aligns with our philosophy of trying to grow good product with good products.
And you could, if you're doing your super soil and realize that you're having some deficiencies or some stuff going on, you could supplement with your bottles to save
Would
that.
you consider, Scott, somebody who amends with one shot and maybe some other amendments? Would you consider that kind of gearing towards a super soil?
You're getting closer to a super soil there because you've built it up. I mean, it's very similar to a lot of the components people would build as a super soil. Yeah. And it really comes down to preference on what amendments you want to add to make that super soil. But I still think most people are following somebody else's recipe from another state with a different water source.
There's really no, we say this word super soil, but there's nothing really that you're like, you look at this list and this is super soil. It's really, you're following a lot of different people's recipes out there and they approach them differently. So if you are making a good super soil, then you'll be fine and you'll be perfect. You could gear your super soil towards being augmented, so you could augment it with liquids, or you can make your super soil so you're just riding that the whole time, And
there's a lot of guys that just do the add water only all the way to the end, and I think
they
some
usually
will
are still
that they're the
throwing
best
some liquids
the
or
best.
kelp that every time I'm talking to them, it's not just the soil that they're riding on
rare.
completely.
So a super soil is an attempt to make a soil. I mean, because you grow your tomatoes in soil, but you're trying to push harder for a cannabis situation, and so you're trying to get all the way through without having to put anything on there.
They just don't want to do bodies. They want to just do water, which is fine because that's natural gardening and just add water. But they still have to amend it. My only qualm with most super soils isn't the super soil. It's not the amendments for the round. It's not a matter of being affordable or whatever. It's when they take that, so you're in a vegetable garden or you're in a huge pot, and you're going to recycle that soil for next run, and they don't get a full lab done on that super soil that they've amended the crap out of for the season. Because I guarantee you, if you put down 50 pounds of every single thing that you want into that hole, it's not all getting used, and the imbalances from year to year become tragically different. Oh yeah, it's like your NPK just becomes so out of whack because I added another 12 pounds of green sand this season. Okay, well that's 12 years of green sand.
Testing, it's hard to know what's going on because you put so many variables in there.
And then you want to know why, when I watered with bone meal, everything burned. It's like, well, it burned because you've amended it with 1,000 things, and then you used one liquid and came in heavy with it, so that activated a whole bunch of stuff, which then things react.
Mixed it thoroughly, because if you're mixing this by
a
hand
hot
or
spot
a cement
here,
mixer,
which how many times you see a tarp and a rake and go, I just made my super soil, and you're like,
okay.
Well, I see 25 gallons of death, I see 400 gallons of probably pretty neutral, and 15 gallons of that's the best soil you made. But the rest of that stuff is literally landfill. So, yeah, it's tough. But we do like super soil. You just have to understand the balance. And I'd say the one thing most people need when using a super soil of our line would be the liquid bone meal, the liquid Demeters, the liquid Circes. I mean, anything that has a calcium base, you're not getting. I mean, you can add all the oyster shell you want. You can add all the limestone you want. If you don't have the perfect acidic conditions for these things, your calcium is not availwilable. I can go out into the Willamette Valley, do a lab test on our soil. We are calcium-rich soil, 100% unavailable soil, because it's all glacier, it's all volcanic deposits of huge loads of calcium, but it isn't calcium that your plant can access because it's in rock form.
So there's a bunch of... So they're putting some kind of nitrogen component in there to be available immediately. Like
blood, guano, manures, whatever.
And they're having to re-amend with that stuff as they go through the cycle. Hopefully, because it's going to get...
Well, if they're following a good recipe, they'll have fast nitrogen, they'll have medium nitrogen, and they'll have an alfalfa feather meal nitrogen. Something that's going to give them green now, carry them through a lot of waterings, and then the proteins of alfalfa, feather, those more cellulose-based nitrogens will be the last part of that. So, which is great because nitrogen's fast. It's in and out. You can get rid of it in 4 weeks with watering. So for those guys wanting veg, they'll just build it up high with nitrogen at the beginning, and then the feather meal will carry them all the way into the mid-flowering.
And when you're using the bottles, is it making some of these more rocky type things more available quicker than they would be naturally, or?
Oh yeah, because we've dissolved them. So we've taken limestone rock and turned it into a liquid limestone.
But the rock that's in there already is just going to sit there until it breaks down by whatever.
By acid.
Zeus juice would be like something that would be helping one of the chelating nutrients and things like that. So
if you were to take all your
most
peat
of those
and
super
press
soil
it
guys
into
are
a
using
liquid.
like humics of some type or like a liquid humic.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. A flying ducky. This is a long one. I'm just going to read it because I don't know where it's going. I have some plants in a 25-gallon fabric pot. Where I live, it gets over 110 degrees Fahrenheit at times, but the plants are in an area in the yard that doesn't burn them. But they get direct sun for a good amount of the day. I feed every time I water, 5-gallon buckets full of water, and they do get thirsty on the off days. There's droop, but not too much if they're doing pretty good. Question. So I went to water the other morning, and there was a thick layer of mycelium about half an inch thick on top of my soil. I thought it was the hurt residue. I pulled a chunk and I could see hyphae and smelled like mushrooms. Is that a good thing? Is that normal? And there's another question. We'll hit that one, then we'll go to the other one.
Oh, I mean, that he's growing mycelium on the surface of his soil from a lot of feedings?
That's what it appears to be.
I find it interesting that I was able to take hold in the temperatures. He said how hot, but...
110 degrees, but it's off in a spot where it's
25, so it's probably well shaded. And probably moist.
Well, he's watering every day trying to keep these things going, and so he's probably, even though it's hot, it's got some fairly...
Yeah, now plants can handle that. Tops can handle, I mean, I've seen farms in the desert that get to 130. It's the roots need to stay cool is the key. So if you keep your roots cool, your heads can get super hot. Not a problem. But the mycelium thing is not uncommon at all, especially with organic matter in the soil. You're feeding it organic matter that will help it thrive. Half-inch thick is pretty impressive. It's got to be a combo mat of the gum from the work, and the mycelium's breaking that gum down by being on top of it. And so you're probably a nice fine, 1/16 of a layer of fungus on a
bone cake.
Big chunk of bone cake. So, but it's totally normal and safe. You've got good mycelium. If it starts climbing up the side of your plant and like rotting your stem, then that's a bad one. But if it's staying away from your stems, you're fine.
That's funny. I wanted to touch on, you were talking about tops being able to handle the heat, but the roots not. I think I see that a lot of people over watering and over loving their plants here in this valley because, it'll get hot on a day and your plant will start to droop a little bit.
Yeah.
And you instantly want to go water the plant, but I always tell customers, it's like in gardeners that it's like us. On a 110 degree day, you feel hot, you look hot, you can drink water, but you're still gonna feel like the plant's looking. So sometimes when you're visibly looking on your plant, you got to be careful. Here in the Willamette Valley, especially, of overwatering when you see that little bit of droop on a hot day. Because my big key is if they were holding up like past noon and it's getting warm, but it's like by 3 you start to see that. As soon as that sun's down, they're up praying again. And
that's what I would do. Is recommend wait till the sunset. If they go right back to praying or rigid, then plants at 100. I think 98 degrees on the foliage. The stomata shut down and stop transpiration to prevent vapor loss, and they don't dehydrate on the stem. So when you see this at 85, this at 88, and then this at 93. This isn't because they're thirsty. This is so they're in like save my ass mode because it's about to get hotter. And then you go out there in the evening and they're back up. They're not out of water. They're just not transpiring to make sure they don't evaporate off.
And especially as we head into September here with a couple 100 degrees in our forecast, you're going to see that. But a lot of times that soil is still moist and there's some moisture there. But the plants are doing, like you said, they're hot.
Yeah, pretty common.
Is Kraken a good source of calcium when running Chaos? Would it be better to run some Kraken with Chaos than without? Or is it like with its or what's it like with its interaction?
Well, I mean, if there's
you gotta have the hurt.
You need the calcium from the calcium phosphate or from the bone calcium. Kraken is more of a chitin. It's more of a cellulose protein of shell, not of bone. So you're not getting nearly the calcium load or the availability with chitin. Crab and shrimp is really designed for cell structure and strength rather than support of cell development and amino acid creation of the cells internally in the plant. That's where Herc and Athena are so important when you're doing the Chaos, because they're building the cells. Kraken is kind of going, all right, cells built, let's build a fortress around this so it doesn't transpire to death. And again, that helps with evaporation, and you're building like a silicate around these cells to help protect that plant from heat stress, environmental stresses, and it gives them a stronger appearance and
very
structure.
little anything to do with Chaos.
Yeah, I would not even put them in the same.
So
I was going to say, it's again trying to break away from that NPK mindset and looking at the holistic, the big picture of all of our products and how you use each product, because you may pick up the Kraken and see, I think it's a 040, in there in that neighborhood. You might be like, I could just use this for flowering. Also, it has a lot of phosphorus in there, because I have a lot of customers who come in and they've read, those books.
Why should I more than Megamorpheus?
Why would I need this one, and this one has more of the phosphorus. And again, like Scott said, Kraken's main purpose is to help strengthen cell structure, not necessarily
it's the
make
chitin,
blooms.
not the phosphorus in that one that's available. That's what we're really looking for. The phosphorus is really to make sure it doesn't explode.
which is a good thing.
Well, you've smelled that stuff. Imagine that stuff exploding out. I mean, I thought Triton's was bad. Get a fermented Kraken.
You have to move.
That product had just came out when I first started.
Huh?
That product it was in the sample stage when I first started, and I can remember, everyone being like, Pegasus smell, and that smells, but man, the crab shrimp, for me, took the cake.
That took a different level. It's pretty violent. A bad batch of that it's a ring clear for sure.
Go figure, crab and shrimp. That smell great. Digested.
Oh, crab.
So these are just questions.
Yeah, those are from the East Coast guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the anal guy.
Oh, super. Okay. In the Nectar Bible on page 66 under Final Ripening, prior to harvest, option 3, Carl says, can you try putting in full-strength Bloom Chaos in plain water for a watering or two in the end? Also, it sure makes the buds... So that's the question. This one's going to split off there. Also, it makes the buds rock hard. I tried it on a couple of plants that had soft buds. Stay tuned, but I'm curious of your thoughts, pros and cons.
So, in theory of how the chaos and its mode of action in the plant, how it all works, so Carl is Pig.
Okay.
In this. And so Pig was, for a while, during the final flush, you'd hammer them really hard with chaos, all on its own, just by its one watering to trigger that last response.
Oh.
To bring everything up now. The only reason why I don't promote this is because it will, if your plant's, you're at the end, so at this point you should be patting yourself on the back, game's over, you have 2 days till harvest, so there's really nothing you can do that's really going to be that damning.
Yeah.
But if you...
This is a bold move, though.
This is bold, because you are going to come in the next day in those neat fall colors, and the healthy plant that's just started defoliating, it's going to go like this, because it literally is going to be like, oh, you want us to be done?
I'm done.
And then I'll just finish up by parking the last of everything. Yeah. It doesn't make for a high times photo finish end of the plant, but the fruit and the genetic, again, this one really, to me, he had genetics that could definitely do what he is stating they did. And I've seen it, I've been there, I know it can happen. Most of our viewers don't have those genetics. I would be I would take one plant, I would try this method where you just, at the last 7 days for your final flush, hit them once or twice hard with just chaos, and then do the final flush with the Herc and the Afro.
Yeah.
See what happens. But I can guarantee you the plant's going to get really gnarly looking. The foliage, but the fruit should be fine because it's done. You can't really undo the fruit.
Yeah.
But it does help solidify and make that last push a density push versus just finishing them out for flavor and last bit of trichome production and the terpene enhancements.
So this is like jumping your motorcycle over a canyon and when you land doing a special dismount.
Well, it's landing with a ramp at the same trajectory versus the stepping off the elevator before it hits the ground like a coyote. It's just
like
you don't want to do that.
Ride that collapse down on that group of people. Oh my god!
Oh jeez.
Okay,
you're buckled in and you come up out of the seat. It's never a good
no.
sign.
I'll tell you about this
with a roller coaster harness on. You still came out of the seat. No good.
Okay. Good answer.
Yeah.
This question. You have a few episodes where you gloss over this subject. Maybe I just not quick enough or didn't pay attention in chemistry or missed an episode, but you reference mixing Olympus up with Hades down to create calcium carbonate or to create rock phosphate. Love to know more about this and if it will help with pH. Pretty sure I just didn't get it. I've never heard this before.
Well, the whole thing is...
Have I never heard this
I think
before?
that goes back to the alkalinity talk, maybe when we
I'm
were
sure there was a piece of it there.
We were reacting with... You were pushing the water up to then down it.
Well, that was to get the conversion of carbonates to bicarbonates, but I think
we
way back we discussed, because all this alkalinity was never in the Bible, or I don't think we even did that.
So this is a precursor to using the soda water to...
This is way before that.
Okay.
And what this was because of the acidity of certain products, or let's say you were to take Hades, which is just pure phosphoric acid and citric acid, but phosphoric acid being the reactor, and Olympus limestone, and what making rock phosphate, the statement there is basically there's rock phosphorus, like phosphorus rock, in the soil that is totally insoluble, totally unavailable to anything because it's rock. It's a phosphorus rock. So ag will use that phosphorus rock and react it with different acids to create different elements, and literally phosphoric acid and limestone will make a rock phosphate. So one of the ways they do rock phosphate is taking rock, phosphorus rock, adding a calcium base, and then flashing it with phosphoric acid. The reaction is solubilizing the rock phosphate into a usable rock, and that's one of the things. So there's like ammonium nitrate phosphates are the same way, where they use an ammonia nitrogen to flash the phosphate rock to make it a ammonium phosphate, or it's just a reaction that's occurring from a base and an acid.
This is some Heisenberg shit. This is
chemistry
set.
Googleable.
But this is chemistry set shit. This is not.
Yeah, this is It's putting bases and acids together to create elements, and the element we're creating is rock phosphate. So when you go over, and the main thing really is that it's creating an energy. So what I think we can stem this all the way back to. You have a 4.1 pH solution of food because you're using Roman mid-flowering.
Sure.
Then you take a 13 base Olympus liquid limestone and you flash it on there. The worst, it's pure energy because it's literally creating gamma radiation from the reaction of that acid and the base, and it's creating these microflakes of rock phosphate in a sense where this phosphorus is being reacted to this calcium rock, and then that becomes a nutrition for the plant. That's where I think this is all stemming from, is if it's so low and you hit it so high, you're literally creating a rock phosphate, just like phosphoric acid does with phosphorus rock, and limestone will create rock phosphate.
All right.
Chemistry.
These are the questions people said they wanted. I want some
That's why I'm only doing 2 or 3 at a time.
This is some
like 20.
Shit. Okay. Well, that was fun.
And he's very he dives deep in a lot of things, and he brings up great questions, and some of them are irrelevant, and some of them are freaking amazing because you're like, well, if somebody can understand this part of it, and why we why don't you let it sit out for 4 days before you use your nutrition? Well, because that exact reaction that we really want, because that reaction is energy. That sun is putting out energy. Those are gamma radiation. Energy. What's a plant consume? Energy. So if we are mixing up our stuff, flashing it with a base, all the acids going react, it's pure energy. That's why when you mix pH, feed, and then you're like, I can watch my plants rise up and vibrate and da-da-da-da-da. It's because they're absorbing that energy, not only the nutrition, the elements, and the pieces, but the energy from the reaction is also being absorbed.
It's 1,000 suns.
That's a common question we get is a lot of people want to know how long they can use that mixture, and we constantly advocate mix it.
Fresher the better.
Use the fresher the better.
Or you're just creating literally meals. I mean, we took all those meals and we spent 10 weeks breaking them down into soluble forms to not go back into a gallon to be created back into a compound so large the plant can't consume it, because chemistry, once you start adding these products, chemistry is starting
to do its thing.
And the more, as long as they're all in the same pH range while you're doing the chemistry, they'll stay stasis. But once you react it, game over. Energy's going to happen. You need to get it into the soil so the plant can use all of that.
Yeah. So questions like this are like sometimes, well, fuck no, but, and you think of something that's interesting.
Oh, no, I got about 20 more from him. So
okay.
Feed him in every week.
Sweet. Okay. Good answer, I think. I don't know who knows.
Well done.
Smelly Jelly Biscuit says, if you use Persephone, how should you cut back on Zeus, especially if using something else with molasses in it, like Recharge? I know I've heard the beard say that you can choke out your rhizosphere with too much long-chain carbon, like molasses. So how much is too much? So you're not using that much Zeus to start with in any recipe, right? I mean, do you ever need to cut back your Zeus? Well, can you just... I'm going to shut up and you tell me what you think of that question. Is Persephone and Zeus...
They're not this. I mean, Persephone is a lignin sulfate from tree sap, so it's basically pre-digested sugarcane molasses, if you will. And Zeus is 2 stages before oil. I mean, it's just pure liquid humic acid. They look similar as being very black. But outside of that, one's a carbon that feeds microbes, one's designed to become a microbial food or enhance the uptake of the other nutrients. It has a very slight bit of sulfate in there for some terpene enhancements. But Zeus is literally a soil conditioning, humic acid soluble with some fulvic backing that literally helps buffer the soil, helps kind of entice and energize the microbial field to want to consume more of the other elements in the product line, and it helps condition other elements to start to slowly be a digester for larger compounds like calcium phosphate in actual bone meal that's been put into the potting soil as an amendment, not a liquid food. So, I mean, that's why we say, more is not better with Zeus, because it's expensive, it's super concentrated, and you're not gaining any more buffering or digestion by adding 5 tablespoons versus 1 teaspoon, because that's plenty for every feeding.
So those two products aren't really overlapping each other.
No,
what their functions are or what they're made out of. So.
Yeah, they function totally different in the plant and the soil. So
teaspoon or 2, no more, no less.
Of Zeus.
Persephone.
But even the Persephone, you get to a point where it's like, at what point are you overfeeding the microbial field and then just creating more of a backlog of carbon that the plant doesn't need? So it's just a waste of money more than anything else. So really, 1 to 2 tablespoons of that is all you ever really need to even push with, because you're not enhancing beyond what the microbes can deliver to the plant with that feeding. So I'd rather give them a tablespoon every single feeding than 3 weeks at 4 tablespoons to try to catch up, because you can't just play catch up when you need that extra enhancement. You just kind of got to keep the microbes happy all the way through to keep that a constant train of nutrition to the plant.
This is one thing I was always drawn to organs only and Constant Gardener before I worked there was just that honesty of it's rare in this world to have a company tell you don't have to use twice as much of it to get the end result, and it's pretty refreshing.
I fear hearing back from people, honestly. It's like, I answer the damn email, so if I give bad advice, I hear about it, and it's not worth it. So, baby steps.
I don't know how many times we talk, you could use double the amount, but why would you? You're just throwing your money away at that point.
This guy, the one with the technical questions, and his water situation, and whatever's happening, he's on a perpetual high pH situation, and to combat that, we have to feed him almost twice as much, and he's always 2 or 3xing something in the line just to keep up with the parts per million, because the plants are eating everything, but the pH just keeps climbing because of whatever's in the water. And it's not like pure alkalinity like some people. I can go, oh, look at your water. That's what it is. We are like filtering through his lab to find out what chemistry is happening that is creating high pH when none of the things that should are here present. So he's an anomaly in that sense. Yeah, it's weird. I don't know what my point was.
I don't know either.
I mean,
Well, no, more is
bad.
more is not better. Is the point we're getting to?
Not always.
Yeah.
It's not always the answer.
Yeah.
Well, and just the level of that you go to try to help solve some of these problems is pretty remarkable.
How much blame I take for all of it.
You're the captain.
Usually
It's your
starts
fault.
with, hey, why did this going wrong for me? And then eventually...
Everything was great until my grower came in and told me you guys just burned everything. It's like, well, I didn't know I was there last night. That's fucked up of me. What a jerk.
Well, it's like the submarine that sank when they flushed the toilet. It was the captain's fault.
They should have thought about that.
Yeah,
before
thought
they
of it.
went. Would
Yeah.
you flush a toilet on a sub?
Well, there's a system, I guess.
He's out.
I gotta go, you
All
guys.
right.
Well, it's
Say
always
bye,
good seeing you, Bob.
Christopher.
Yeah,
Always
good
good
seeing
seeing
you.
you, Scott. I'll see you next time. We did the awkward turkey
Well, I
day.
just went like that, so that's probably disgusting. That's I went like this.
I get to move my leg
work
now.
with
Dog's sitting on my foot.
Pretty organic fertilizers. I think I'll
Oh
be
yeah, I'm not
okay.
worried about our immune systems. We're good.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.
See you, Christopher.
We got some more questions.
Let's do them.
All right. I'm going to edit this one a little bit. Filio Farms. He wants to know more about Persephone's, and he's talking about some wine flavors and flavors like that. But I guess he's wanting to know about Persephone specifically as far as how you might use it, what flavors and what genetics and those sorts of things.
Oh, as far as like we promote Tritons for the fuel.
Exactly.
I guess the verdict's still in on that one. We're still out on that one, trying to figure out what we really notice. It's very similar in like, now I won't say similar in bone meal and how it works, but how it expresses is more of a general, because we're really focusing on the microbes when it comes to Persephone. It's not about the uptake for the plant. You know, if I'm going to go for the carbon, I'm really going to go Aphrodite's because the plant can access that without the microbes.
Yeah.
Where with Persephone's, we're really focusing on feeding bacteria, feeding fungus, getting the soil biology to be stronger and healthier so they can absorb more nutrition from the other elements. You know, I would say it is very general terpene enhancement. So it's not the burnt, it's the glass. I mean, it's the wine itself. I mean, it's giving you it's taking a decent flavor and enhancing all of it to be a nicer flavor.
Well, like when you get a Japanese steak, they fed that cow beer and wheat or grain or whatever. And was it because of the flavor of those things that the beef tastes different? Or just because they fed it this rich fucking diet?
In a hammock.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Wagyu.
this is kind of a richening of this is a fatty thing to make it taste better, but it's not going to specifically give it the flavor of blueberries or the flavor of...
No, you're not going to get a fruitier or gassier or earthier terpenes like the rest of these different bone meals can give us those, where this is it's just making the bone meal from Herc overall taste better in the flour.
Yeah. So
it's our answer to the molasses piece of the whole industry, because what would the molasses be to the industry if, to our line, if we had a molasses food? Would that be for gas? Would that be for... It would be for the microbes. And so this is our answer to, we've fed so many times, now we want to make sure our microbial field's nice and strong, so let's make sure that they get a food that they really want, that they're going to use as a breeding source, or give them enough energy to want to reproduce, to keep consuming the nutrition in the soil. It's a microbe food.
Okay. Good answer. Keith McGreeny. I don't think we've heard from Keith in a long time. Doesn't feel like it. Would there be any fundamental differences if you were growing indoor versus outdoor with bloom strategies in a pot or versus okay, so indoor, outdoor, pot, ground. So outdoor, pot, ground, indoor.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess when I go outside I get a little bit lazier. Where indoor I've got such a confined space and spot of root zone and soil, so I treat them so much more with a cautious hand, with way more. I mean, there's days when my outdoor I literally fill up the bucket at the hose on the side of the house while dumping Herc into it, and then just walk out and pour the whole thing on the pot and walk away.
Well, and you've got a Honda generator versus a nuclear reactor.
Well, that's a Honeywell 35,000 unit, and this was 1,000 watts. So there is, I think, fundamentally, I'm looking at it the same way. Outdoors, I take a way lazier approach. This isn't right or wrong. I find outdoor a lot easier to me because I don't have to. I'm not as worried about 400 gallons of soil as I am 5 gallons. Because at 5 gallons, if my thermostat goes out and my vent fan doesn't turn on for 5 hours, that could be bone dry and I could be cooking.
Yeah.
We're outside. It's like the forecast for the next 10 days say a high of 96. I'm good. You know, and Mother Nature's going to take care of the rest. All I got to do is make sure I hydrate them. Outdoors, I have 4 days between death and dry out, where indoors I have, 12 hours from drying out to death. So, I mean, the fundamental, practices of gardening, I'm way more intense. I think indoor gardening is far more...
It's an investment, too.
It really is. You're spending a lot more money.
Yeah.
And I find that indoor, because you're focusing on a different light source, you're very much on a very selected your time frame, because you trigger the flowering response, you end the cycle, so you get to really control the feedings a lot more on the indoor, where outdoor you're like, man, why aren't they showing yet? It's July 30th, it's July 29th, I'm not seeing anything. That's weird. So you don't necessarily follow the same 8 to 10 week flowering cycle because you're trying to figure out when the flowering cycle starts.
Yeah.
Is it when the hours get less? Is it exactly at 12 and 12 for light cycle outdoors? So it's not, I think the indoor is far more intense as far as paying attention to the small details, where outdoor is way more forgiving in the sense where you can really kind of just I'm only going to water them this week, and they'll get away with it.
Well, you have an expectation that it's not going to be amazing, but it's also going to be pretty good when you're outside. Whereas when you're inside, I'll be damned if I'm going to spend all this time, all this money, and not get...
It has to be better than the dispensary.
Yes.
And that's it. Indoor, you're really... The people that really grow indoors are they want that for their head. They want that for their local community.
Sure.
The guys doing outdoor really like to smoke a lot. They have dialed in a really nice recipe so they get good quality.
Yeah.
But they're really going for the volume to carry them through the next indoor. Well, that may be assuming, but I would assume that I'm right.
Well, it's a beer and a single malt kind of situation.
Well, that's it. Yeah. Well, exactly.
Yeah.
12% or 4%. Yeah.
So the indoor is where it'd be more precise. What would you be looking at there as kind of a general thing to really be on it with your bloom?
To me, it's those slurries and knowing where the pH. If you dial in pH and ppms throughout the entire bloom cycle, and you can push, to me, it's a lot easier to push an indoor plant than it is an outdoor plant.
Sure.
Because you have such a small... You can correct it a lot faster. You can feed it way more regularly. You can't water and feed a 400-gallon pot every single day, 20 gallons of food.
Yeah, no.
But I can feed a 5-gallon pot a gallon of food every single day and have them come back and be dry and ready for more.
Yeah.
So I think I can push a lot harder indoors than I can outdoors. I can still push outdoors. There's so many more variables that just take my thought process out of the outdoor. Indoor, I have to think all the time. And outdoor, like I said, I can fill up my bucket. They look happy and healthy all the way to the end, and it's always smokable. But
it's not gonna be perfect, but it's gonna be pretty good.
I don't share that stuff with my friends so much. But
this is maintenance.
Now there are growers like Rabbit Hill Farm down there in Williams, Oregon. They're outdoor because they use the Roman. They literally come back and I can't tell. But I personally, owning the company and laziness, running Roman on an outdoor, they're doing it on 96 plants. So they're doing that on these 15-foot by 10-foot plants that are super huge and giving them Roman 3 times a week. And it's but their flower comes out like it's, they call it, it's light up, I guess. Nah, this is indoor. So that's one of the very few outdoor plants where I'm I'll take it.
It's doable.
It's doable, but to me, it's I can't imagine feeding 450 gallons times 98 the Roman regimen at mid-bloom.
Well,
3 times a week.
I guess, when you get the pizzas, and this pizza is 5 of this pizza. Because it's when you're growing such a bigger plant, maybe it kind of evens out that you're growing so much more that maybe all that work you put into it kind of evens out a little bit, I guess.
Downfall's the stigma of indoor versus outdoor, so the price tags very much follow the growth. So putting that much energy, that much time, that much love and money into an outdoor to produce indoor quality outdoor, but still selling it outdoor, that's a losing position. That's what sucks, because they put it in because they really are passionate. They care about the plant. They care about the product. They care about finished goods being top notch, but they get kicked in the dirt when they're sitting there going, so that 3-part farm that did 6,000 plants is going to get the same price tag as this craft cannabis because nobody in that market gives a shit? Interesting.
It's like a Corvette and a Ferrari. You look at the performance, the Corvette is beautiful car that's pretty close to that Ferrari, but it's a third as much because it's a Chevy Corvette. It's not a Ferrari mod. And so it's just the perception. There's nothing you can do about that to overcome that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. This is the idea for the show. Just read it.
Next one. That'll be next show.
Okay.
I took these off of those and then because we can use them.
So you want those later, so we're good to go. That's all the questions? Okay. Well, that was good. That was nice having Christopher here. I felt like there was a...
well, basically, I was warning you that he's going to replace you.
Oh, okay.
So, this is Christopher, Bob's replacement. We're going to go ahead and train him here without Bob knowing. So, Bob's going to be a little stressed for the first 5 minutes while he tries to figure this out, but he'll learn.
You can just tell me.
I don't know. That wasn't it. No, I really wanted Christopher... He's been on my mind a lot because I get a lot of people that just thank you and I.
Yeah.
And that's cool. I appreciate it. I mean, we're here because you guys want us to do a show on just jibber-jabbering about questions, but I think it's very important that it's not organs only that's performing the way OCGFAM is, and all the marketing, the website, all that stuff is an entire different entity. It's just an entity that we really work well with because they're right down the street. They embrace our product greater than any distributor, any other retailer, any grower. These people have been the best for the best of us since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
So when I see all the praise going out to us as OCGFAM, which is great because we do put in, I mean, we don't really put that much, I mean, you way more than I do into it, but...
Well, I'm a YouTuber, you know?
This is your job.
Yeah, and you make this stuff.
I wouldn't do this show, though.
No, but but it's just, I would say Bob for Oregon's Constant Gardener because I worked at Oregon's Constant Gardener when I started doing this, but really...
No question. We did Green Room Lives on our Wayback videos. Yeah. No, you've been a very intricate piece to why this thing even is. Yeah. Believe me, if Bob said, fuck it, I don't want to do this anymore, then we're done. We're done. Because I don't have it in me. I can't create... I don't want to...
But Christopher is the customer-facing motherfucker of this whole operation. I mean, you deal with tech support stuff, but he deals with actually putting it in someone's, and also is a pretty serious grower.
Oh, he's...
I mean,
everything, from food for his family to his own medicine, for private use only. But he is he's passionate. He's got, his heart is this big. He's
such a decent...
I don't like saying company man ever.
No.
But he's one of those people that, just shy of... The only way to make him leave is if we went out of business because he eats, poops, and breathes Oregon's Constant, Nectar for the Gods, and we recognize it. There's no question that, we have a profit center in the shipping department. And that's not because we literally are quoting you penny for penny the shipping.
Yeah.
But why there's a profit center is because he's never lost a claim. Uh-huh. So you guys get a 25% or 20 or 25% discount, whatever your code is for the month.
Yeah.
All right. Well, when that package gets damaged, that 20% off that you paid, we claim it at full. This is the full retail.
Yeah.
So he wins freight, shipping, packaging, and full retail. We make money on the loss of product. Nobody does that.
No,
literally, there's a profit center in UPS shipping, which is impossible. I take a huge loss. I got 20 packages from last month down there that UPS kicks off their damn truck to the consumer, where he got challenged one time. He's like, no, here's the picture. Here's the box code. He literally blew it all up. And never mind, sorry. Our bad. Here's your full check.
Well, and he has no agenda. No duplicity. No, everything is just straight, decent. Yeah. He just he's not thinking about how this can affect how this can be an advantage to him. Like, oh, this thing blew up over there, so now I'm going to have more money coming in. No, he's like, oh shit, we got to fix that.
No, he's right now, because the whole industry's in a downturn. It's slower than it's been in many, many years, and it is what it is. Well, he shows more concern on the downturn and the lack of sales for. I'm like, man, you can't control this. This isn't anything on a performance level.
So
this is him getting kicked in the nuts because he thinks that. And I'm like, no, look around. The whole industry is very quiet right now, and it's getting ready to surge back into game.
Yeah.
So don't get off your game right now.
No,
he's a gem. I mean, there's a whole team that backs him up over there. There'll be a day where we introduce him to all. I know we've done walkthroughs over there, but Christopher is such an important piece. I mean, he is OCGFAM. We're kind of his spokespeople.
Yeah.
To make us look good. He performs at a level that we just can't.
Well, it was largely a retail store, and there was a lot of resistance to making it a website because of those people that have been there forever as a retail and do that very well and had no inkling of the other, and he's taken on that piece largely on his own.
Very much on his own, all the way down to reporting, to profit centers, to, and like you said, we got into the retail thing, or the online thing. We didn't want to be a Sunlight Supply catalog that just has push buttons and we drop ship like every other website
Browse
on the market.
IGA, it's just,
We didn't want to be everything in our stores for sale because there's nothing different from, all we're doing there is like how low can we get the margins and then make the littlest amount of money by doing the most amount of work.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, listen, if it's not OCGFAM product or Nectar Fan products or OCG preferred products, don't put it on your website and stick with a model. And then this is our offering, and bless his heart, because he is a heavy nectar user. He has his own grows and farms. Yeah. He's very passionate about the nectar line and the nectar products that kind of come with it, or the family products.
Yeah.
And so for him to embrace that has been no problem. And for us to tell him, we don't want you to sell Mammoth Pea on there. We don't give a crap for free charges on there, because that isn't our specialty. That's not. We don't want to answer the questions for why doesn't this work, or
it's a family discount. It's a family discount for this. It's a family both ways.
Yeah.
So
as you can tell, I mean, our subscription level isn't 15 million because we're buying clickbait porn to sit here and make us look like we're famous.
Yeah.
You have to find us. You found us through a friend or word of mouth. We're still private on all channels. I mean, so what you see is about as organic. He sends me the questions an hour before. All I do is go, I don't want to answer this one, but the rest of these are great. And then we just spitball it. So that's our show.
Yeah. I was down in what do you call it, Jacksonville, and some guy came up to me. He's like, "Hey, I'm part of the OCGFAM." Shook my hand, said, and I saw that makes so much to me. He said hi. He's like, and this. That's it. We didn't talk or anything. It's just like, it was kind of like, it was a really neat thing. There's people all over that really are, we're all kind of
that's weird. It's, where was it? I was just somewhere, and the guy came up and asked me about my pizza oven. I was laughing because it was like, you watched the show. That's interesting. But
that's great. I did have one compliment for Christopher that I think it may not come off as a compliment, but you see that he's heavier than either one of us. He's a vegetarian. That man can grow vegetables. You can put on weight eating vegetables.
Not only Christopher rides his bike. Rides his bike from Springfield all the way to Eugene. Every single day.
Yeah.
And climbs Spencer's Butte every day. I mean, that guy's got more muscle mass than I put together, and it's just body style. This is where I look at people and I'm dieting. I'm like, embrace your body style.
Yeah.
No offense, but, change your eating habits. Maybe reduce sugar and soda.
Oh, yeah.
You'll see a drastic, or if you're a drinker, quit drinking.
Yeah.
Quit drinking. If you're not drinking water, how about that? I give you a challenge. I guarantee you, here's Scott's fucking weight loss challenge. And I lost almost 80 pounds by quitting drinking.
Oh, yeah.
Soda and beer.
Yeah.
Just those two out, I was instantly like, holy crap, look at this thing shut off.
Yeah.
Some people have different metabolisms and different issues. And
absolutely. But I would say, though, that he
would outrun me.
Well, I mean, most people that are straight up, he's straight up vegetarian, and most of those people look like marathon runners, and he makes some good food. He's
healthy.
He grows some amazing food and some amazing product. He's
no joke. He's a good person to have on our team, that's for sure. And they, like I said, when you do right support at OCG, He's the one that's tackling that question first.
Yeah.
He sends me every answer before he sends them back, or if he's confident enough in the answer, then he'll just CC me on the response. I've yet to have to correct him on many things. He's very intelligent. He's a researcher.
Very matter of fact with the answers and knowing the MBK on the back of the bottles and stuff like that.
That's better than me.
Yeah.
I like this stuff. So.
Yeah. So it's something else.
Yeah, he's a guy. So thank you, Christopher. You're still watching. Christopher, hopefully you're still watching. You know you left to go pick up your kid from school. So, and I think just to date this, the Queen died today. So we got to date this show with the death of the Queen.
Yeah,
so there's that.
Yeah,
just saying.
Passed on.
Just needed to be said. So
when
was that? Oh yeah, the day the Queen died. Oh yeah, you mean September 8th?
Well, I went on my Jalopnik, and then I went on my Formula One site, some car sites. Both of them had something on there. It's a big deal.
What I found really weird this morning was all over the news. They were talking about how the medical officials think that she should stay under medical supervision for a couple more weeks, and then she died in 20 minutes. Weird.
Odd.
So why was that on fucking Good Morning America? Why did they sit there and talk about that? Oh, there 3 posts this morning were about her maybe dying. I'm like, and then she dies?
Yeah, she was probably just like, hey guys, I'm good. And they're like, no, we're fucking curing you. You're fucking not.
It's time for you to go. Charles wants to be king. So we'll see if that gets canceled.
Yep. All right.
If so, have a great day.
Love you.
Yeah.
It's the OCGFAM show.